Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel. This is a bonus project that I have included for our 2023 Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along, and what we're going to be making today is a pair of basic doll shoes for my Amigurumi dolls, Advent Adam and Advent Addy. Now, these shoes can be made and used for any of the outfits that we've crocheted so far in the Crochet Along. And so I'm going to show you today how to make the shoes, and I'm going to be making them in the color for the elf costume, but you can also make them in black to go along with the firefighter costume that we made a few weeks ago, or any color that you'd like to match the other outfits that you've made so far. So let's hop on into what materials you'll need to follow along with today's tutorial. To follow along with today's tutorial, you're going to need the following materials. You're going to need a worsted weight yarn in your color of preference, and today I'm using the color Pea Pod. If you are following along with the Crochet Along for Advent Adam and Addy, then for our shoes to match our elf outfit, then I used the color Avocado Green here from Bravo We Crochet's We Crochet's Bravo worsted weight line. And for our firefighter costume, you can use the same shoe pattern and just make it in black or whatever color goes with your colors that you chose for your firefighter costume. All right, so then you'll also need a 3.5mm or E crochet hook, or whatever hook size that you've been using throughout the Crochet Along to match the gauge given in the pattern. And if you're looking for the gauge information, you can find that in the free written version of this pattern found on my blog, and I've linked to that in the description box below for you. You'll also need a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, a stitch marker, and a pair of scissors. So let me clear off my workspace here and we'll hop on into crocheting a pair of doll shoes for our Amigurumi dolls. All right, to make our doll shoes, you're going to need your worsted weight yarn in whatever color you're using. I'm using this Pea Pod color, so it matches my elf costume for my dolls. But if you're wanting to make this for your firefighter costume for your doll, then I would recommend using the color black or whatever color matches the rest of your firefighter uniform. These shoes can fit any of my crochet doll patterns. And just make sure that you're using the same tension that you've used throughout the entire toy. But we'll talk about gauge and matching that in just a moment if you've been matching gauge. So I'm using the color Pea Pod here, and I'm going to start by creating a magic circle. So what I'm going to do is lay this yarn tail across my palm and pin it down with my thumb. Then I'm going to grab the working end of the yarn and wrap it around my two fingers like this, and then cross it over the yarn tail to create an X. Now, while I'm maintaining tension on the working end of the yarn, I'm going to turn my hand over, bringing the yarn across the top of my fingers, and then I'm going to pin it down between my baby finger and my ring finger here. I'm going to grab my crochet hook and insert it under the first strand and over the second. Then I'm going to pull that second strand out and under the first. Now I'm going to twist my crochet hook, and you can see it creates an X here, and this kind of creates a little loop here that we'll need to complete our next step. So then I'm going to yarn over hook with this yarn strand here and pull that through the loop on my hook. And that's your magic circle created, or adjustable ring. There's lots of names for it. And then I'm just going to pull my fingers out from the ring, and I'm ready to go. Now, what I like to do is I like to grab my yarn tail, because you can see how it goes into the magic ring. I'm just going to pull that out because I'm going to crochet over it in the next steps. So now we're ready to start with round one of our doll shoes. And round one is we're going to work 6 single crochets into this magic ring. So I'll show you how to do that. Inserting our hook into the center of the magic ring, we're going to yarn over hook and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over again and pull through both loops. That's your first single crochet completed. And now we need to do that 5 more times to get a total of 6. So back into the ring, and you see I'm working over that yarn tail. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook there, and then yarn over and pull through both loops again. And that's your second single crochet completed. So we'll do that again, into the ring, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's your third. And we'll do this 3 more times. So I have 6 single crochets, and to count your stitches, turn your stitches up towards you so you can see these little V's and they're facing you. And counting from the first V here, we never count the yarn on our hook as a stitch, and we're going to count each of those V's. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I've got my 6 single crochets. That means I'm done with round 1. And then we're going to tighten our magic circle. So I'm going to take this yarn tail and give it a tug. And I'm holding on to the stitches with my one hand while I pull on the yarn tail. And this will cinch our hole closed there. Now you can get that a little tighter if you need to. And it should look like this when we're moving forward. Now we're going to need our stitch markers here in our next step. So just have that handy. So moving into round 2, the instructions say we're going to work 2 single crochets into each stitch around, or it's also called a single crochet increase, because we're going to continue to increase in the next few rounds to build the bottom of our shoe. So working into this very first stitch, we're going to insert our hook under both loops of that first stitch. Now that first stitch might be tight to get into depending on how tightly you did that first stitch. So that's totally normal. Once you keep going, it will work itself out. You'll be fine. So once I've inserted into the stitch, I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And that's my first single crochet completed. And then I'm going to grab that stitch marker and place it into that very first stitch. So as I said, we're doing a single crochet increase, and that's 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. We've only done 1 stitch so far, so we're going to insert our hook back into that very same first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 to complete your second stitch. And now we're just going to work 2 single crochets into each stitch around. So into this next stitch, there's my first single crochet, back into the same stitch, and there's my second single crochet. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 2 single crochets into each remaining stitch around, at the end of the round you should have 12 single crochets. I'll meet you back here in just a moment to show you how we're moving into round 3. All right, so I'm back and I'm at the end of round 2. And if you count your stitches, I recommend you start with the stitch that has your stitch marker in it and count those V's all the way around, and you should have 12 stitches. So now we're ready to move into round 3, and we're going to start by moving that stitch marker temporarily out of the way so we can work into that first stitch. We're going to have a pattern repeat that we're going to work around our piece, and that pattern repeat is 1 single crochet into the first stitch and 2 single crochets or a single crochet increase into the next. And we're going to repeat that pattern 6 times. So I'll show you how to do that pattern. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into that first stitch. We're going to grab our stitch marker and place it into that very first stitch we created. Goodness. There we go. All right, so it's in our first stitch, and now we're going to work a single crochet increase into the next stitch. And again, that's those 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. So there's 1, back into the same stitch. There's 2. All right, and that's our first pattern repeat. It's really that simple. Now we need to do this a total of 5 more times. So we'll do it together again. 1 single crochet into the first stitch. Single crochet increase into the next. So there's the first single crochet, back into the same stitch, and there's the second single crochet. Then that's our second pattern repeat completed. So if you'd like to pause your video and do that repeat of 1 single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet increase, or 2 single crochets into the next stitch, a total of 4 more times. At the end of this round, you should have 18 single crochets. I'll meet you back here in just a moment to show you how we'll be moving into round 4. So moving into round 4, I'm going to move this stitch marker out of the way, and I'm going to work 1 single crochet into that very first stitch. Then I'm going to grab my stitch marker and place it into that first stitch that we've created. And now we're going to work a single crochet increase into this next stitch here. So there's 1, back into the same stitch, and here's 2. And now we have a pattern repeat that we need to do a total of 5 times. And that pattern repeat is 1 single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches, followed by a single crochet increase. And I'll show you how to do that now. So we're working 1 single crochet into this first stitch, 1 single crochet into the next, and then a single crochet increase into this third stitch here. So there's my first single crochet, back into the same stitch. Here is my second single crochet, and that's our first pattern repeat completed. Now we need to do this 4 more times. So we'll do this again together. 1 single crochet into the first stitch, 1 single crochet into the next. Now we'll do a single crochet increase into this next stitch here. And that is our second pattern repeat completed. So if you'd like to pause your video now and do this repeat 3 more times, I'll meet you back at the end of the round where we'll have 1 stitch left to be worked, and I'll show you how we'll work into that last stitch. All right, so I just finished my 5th repeat of those 2 single crochets followed by a single crochet increase, and I have 1 stitch left to be worked here at the end of round 4. And in this last stitch, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into that final stitch. And at the end of this round, you should have 24 single crochets around your piece. Now, at this point, if you are matching gauge in the pattern, your piece should measure 1.5 inches across at the widest point. And when I say the widest point, I mean, let's move my hook out of the way here so we can see it. If you take a look at your piece, when you're working in a continuous spiral like we are, there are wider sections. If I were to measure from here to here, that area is not as wide as here to here. So a good rule of thumb I always recommend is look where your working loop is, and I measure from the closest edge of the working loop here across to the opposite side. And we're measuring from front loop to front loop because when this continues to grow, you're not actually going to count these back loops because they're going to straighten out. So we're measuring from front loop to front loop. And if you have a ruler or a measuring tape, you would just measure across front loop to front loop, and it should be 1.5 inches across. Now, again, if you're not matching gauge in the pattern, as long as you're using a consistent tension and ideally the same yarn line and weight that you've used throughout the rest of the project, it will help minimize gauge issues. But if not, then I do recommend matching the gauge because it will ensure that your shoes fit your doll. All right, so now we're moving into round 5, and for round 5, we're going to do something a little different. So let's get this stitch marker out of the way. And I want to take a moment to just take a look at your stitches. So taking a look at the tops of your stitches, we are already familiar that we have these V's. But each V is comprised of 2 different strands. The strand furthest from you here is the back loop only, and the strand closest to you is called the front loop only. And when we insert our hook using into the stitch in different ways, either using the front loop or the back loop, it creates different effects in our fabric. So what we're going to be doing in this next round is we're going to be working all of our stitches in the front loop only. And what that will do is help to flip our fabric upwards to start creating the sides of our shoe. So let's do that together now. So to insert our hook, we're going to go up and under the front loop. So we're going up and under that front loop and out through the center of our stitch. Then we're going to single crochet as normal. Okay, and that's called a front loop single crochet. So we're going to grab our stitch marker and we're going to place it into that stitch. And then we're going to continue on by working 1 single crochet in the front loop only in each stitch around. So doing that together again, inserting up and under the front loop only, then single crochet as normal. All right, and again, up and under that front loop only, then single crochet as normal. And one more time, up, goodness, this one is tight, up and under that front loop only, then single crochet as normal. All right, so I'll recommend that you pause your video now and work 1 single crochet in the front loop only into each stitch around. And I'll meet you here at the end of the round and show you how we're moving into round 6. There should be no change in your stitch count. You should still have those 24 single crochets. So I'll meet you back here in just a moment. All right, so I'm back. I'm at the end of round 5, and I just wanted to show you that at this point, this is what your piece should look like. We want to take a look at the back side. This is the wrong side of the work. And if you see these remaining loops that we didn't work into before, that's the inside of your shoe. And you can just give those that ridge a push, and it will flip up the sides of your shoe. All right. So again, if you're not familiar with the back right side versus right side for amigurumi, or working in a continuous spiral, when you see these little horizontal bars on the back of the stitches, that's an easy tell to tell that that is the wrong side of your work. Taking a look at the front, all of your stitches should just look like little V's. All right, so moving into round 6. Round 6 and 7 are both done the exact same way. We're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, and we're working back under both loops as usual. So inserting under both loops, we're going to single crochet and move up our stitch marker. And that's it. We're already very familiar at this point with working 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So I'll ask that you pause your video and do round 6 and 7, working 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And then I'll meet you back here at the end of round 7 to give you instructions for moving into round 8. All right, so I'm done both round 6 and 7, and we're moving into round 8. And in round 8, we're going to start shaping our shoe, and we're going to shape the front of the shoe to cover the toes. So moving this stitch marker out of the way, we're going to do what's called a single crochet decrease. And the purpose of this stitch is to eliminate one of the stitches when you're working it. So you're going to turn 2 stitches into 1. And when we're working in the round like this, I like to use a special technique for this single crochet decrease, which is called an invisible decrease. And what this does is it makes your stitch thinner, so it's less noticeable on the front of your fabric. So we'll show you how to do that now. So we're going to work into the front loop only of this first stitch. Then we're going to kind of angle or twist our hook here to pick up the front loop of the next stitch. Then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop through both of those front loops. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. So we're just doing a single crochet as normal, but we're working through the front loops of the first and second stitch. And now we've turned 2 stitches into 1. So I'm going to grab my stitch marker here and place it into that stitch. And so the instructions say we need to do 6 single crochet decreases. We've already done 1, and so we're going to need to do 5 more. So into these next 2 stitches, we're inserting our hook into the front loop of the first stitch, the front loop, of the second stitch here. Then we're yarning over, yarn over and pull through 2. And that's your second single crochet decrease together. Single crochet decrease. We're going to do that again into the front loops of the first and second stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so there's 3. Let's do it 2 more times together. Front loop, front loop. All right, so that's 4. Sorry, I misspoke earlier. I said 2, we need to do 3. So we're going to front loop, then single crochet as normal. All right, so we're at 5. We need to do 1 more. Front loop of the first and second stitch, then single crochet as normal. And so if you take a look at your piece here, you can see that it's starting to pull the front of the shoe inwards, and that is going to be the toe of your shoe. If you'd like, you can place a stitch marker over this section so that way you know where the front of your shoes are. All right, when you're going to put it onto your toy. So then the instructions say we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 12 stitches. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches, at the end of this round, you should have 18 single crochets. I'll meet you back here in just a moment to show you how we're moving into round 9. All right, so we're moving into round 9, and for round 9, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 12 stitches. So inserting into that first stitch, single crochet, and then move up your stitch marker. We've got 1 stitch done, and so we're going to work 11 more single crochets. All right, so let's double check. I should have 12 stitches. Oops, I need 1 more. I've done 11 because I need a total of 12. All right, so I've got my 12 total single crochets, and what we're going to do is we're going to finish off our shoe. So we're going to cut a yarn tail of at least 4 to 6 inches. And then we're going to take our hook and pull that yarn tail all the way through that last stitch. And what we're going to be doing now is a technique called the invisible join. And what it's going to do is it's going to help minimize this step that we have here between our last stitch and the previous round. It's going to even it out so you can't even really tell that that step exists. So we're going to thread our yarn tail onto a tapestry needle. So we're going to thread our yarn tail onto a tapestry needle. And then we're going to use our yarn tail to duplicate this next stitch here. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert our needle under this second stitch. So we're skipping the first stitch and inserting our needle from front to back through that next stitch. Then we're going to pull the yarn tail all the way through. And while we're pulling, we want to pay close attention to where this yarn tail is laying. I'm going to give it a good tug, and sometimes you need to kind of finagle your fabric a bit. So that way, what this yarn tail does is it duplicates the front loop of this stitch that we skipped. Now, it's not a big deal if it doesn't lay perfectly flat right now. It will improve in just a moment. So I'm good with where it's laying, and I'm going to maintain tension with my left hand on the yarn tail here. Now I'm going to insert my needle through the top, through the back loop only of the last stitch that I did. So I'm going to go in through the top, back loop only, and I want my needle to come out through the back of the fabric. So I'm going to give that a nice pull, and I'm going to pull the yarn tail until it is snug. So as I'm pulling this, again, I want to make sure that my loops look to be the same size as my other stitches on either side, and we want it to lay as flat as we can over the front and the back loops. Now I've used my needle here to kind of push the front loop of that next stitch underneath to even it out. And if you take a look at your fabric now, there is no more step. So now all you need to do is weave in your ends from the beginning and your last yarn tail here, and your shoes are ready to be put on your doll. Now you'll need to make a second one, so I would recommend rewinding the video and watching this again to make your second shoe. And that's it. That's how you make a basic doll shoe for my crochet doll patterns. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please hit that like button, and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com, where we've got over 100 free crochet patterns, many of which have step-by-step video tutorials just like this one. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.